S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S lifeline. VET S.O.S is brought to you by the Who You Know Network and proud members of the Parade Deck community. Today we're sitting down with Michael Haltman, chairman of Heroes to Heroes Foundation. Can't wait to get into this discussion and learn more about what he's doing to help our community with this organization. Dr. Hare, back again. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm very excited to talk more about this organization. I believe the topics and things that they are addressing is near and dear to the work and interests of mine. So very excited for the conversation today.
Absolutely. And you look like you're getting really comfortable over there in the jump seat.
Yeah.
All right. So
You know what? I once spoke with Rob Waldman. Are you familiar with him? Waldo Waldman? But anyway, he always talks about how you need somebody good in your jump seat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've been blessed so far.
All right.
All right, so we'll jump right into it. We got Michael, who serves as the board chair of the Combat Veteran 501c3 Heroes to Heroes Foundation. He is also the CEO of the New York title insurance firm Hallmark Abstract Service. Heroes to Heroes Foundation successfully saves vets returning home suffering with moral injury and who live at serious risk of death by suicide. The one-year program utilizes peer support, spiritual reawakening, and reconnection to faith to achieve its stellar and study-validated results. 10-day team 10-day team journeys to Israel with the participation of similarly suffered IDF soldiers is a key component to the process of healing. Sounds like an amazing program. Can't wait to get into this. Michael, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. I'm doing great, guys, and thank you very much for the invitation to be on and to talk about Heroes to Heroes.
Well, we're excited to have you on, and another great organization that we can't wait to learn more about here as we go. So tell us, what led you to doing this type of work? How did you get into this type of field?
Well, so I was at a business club in New York City. One day, I think now it's about 7 years ago, and I was doing some work. I was sitting at a table with a woman. She was intently working on her computer. I asked her what she was doing, and she told me the mission and the story of Heroes to Heroes, and I said, that's something I need to get involved with. And it was purely by chance, but I've always been a huge supporter of the military, of veterans. I actually never served myself, but I always thank God for the work that the veterans and the military does so that we can do this.
That's outstanding, and it's amazing how that happens, right?
I love those by chance moments, and yeah.
It's fantastic. All right, so what is Heroes to Heroes Foundation?
So Heroes to Heroes is an organization that was founded by a woman, Judy Elias. Now it's probably about 10 years ago, and its mission is to save vets returning home suffering moral injury, and Dr. Hira and I can talk to moral injury, and who live at risk of death by suicide. Judy, the backstory is her father was a vet. He was never really, she describes it as he never really came home. And after he passed, she learned more about the help he was giving to veterans. And she went to Walter Reed one day. She was invited by somebody, and she was appalled by the treatment there. And she wanted to create an organization that would work with vets, and moral injury was very close to her heart, even though it's not a very well-known thing. We're working on that, Dr. Hira.
I love it.
But so it's a one-year program, but key to the one-year program, as you described, Sean, are team journeys to Israel. And what made her realize that was a key to suicide prevention was her own background. When she was young, she had trouble. She was not a good kid necessarily, and her father asked her to go to Israel on a mission, and she didn't want to go. And he said, I don't ask you for much, but please, will you do this? And she went there, and she realized that it changed her life, basically. But she also realized in doing research for Heroes to Heroes, loss of faith is a huge contributing factor in suicide, and there's no more spiritual place on earth than Israel. So that's kind of the backstory. I think that was a long backstory, but that's kind of how Heroes to Heroes came to be.
it's fantastic and an absolute amazing journey. It, so far, this whole thing is kind of surreal in how you got involved, how it came to be.
Right.
It's a fantastic story, Doctor Hare. What do you think?
I think it is. I agree. Moral injury is still, I think, on the edge of what we're understanding in terms of the experience of serving. I think it got a little bit more light during the pandemic when all of a sudden it was being applied to providers in, how are they surviving navigating the woes of treatment and care. But again, it was, well, if that's just a military problem, it's just a military problem. But no, it could be other populations as well. So the approaches of looking at moral injury are vast. I think there's a lot of different lenses that people are coming from. The founding father of it is Jonathan Shea, Dr. Jonathan Shea, who worked with Vietnam veterans. And so I think it's a piece that I've talked to a lot of veterans, and they are describing their experiences. And then I say, I don't know if you've heard of this term. I'm not diagnosing you with anything, but there's this term called moral injury. Have you ever heard of it? And a lot of them say no. And so I give them a couple pieces, maybe some articles, maybe a book or two, and say, you may just want to look it up. And I said, sometimes it can be a very heavy topic, so I do want you to be warned about that. But it sounds like what you're describing may be some of that. And on more occasions than not, they've come back and said, I was looking for a word for this, and that was it. And I couldn't put it into words for other people. So it is present. I got introduced to it through a documentary film, Almost Sunrise. I watched my grandfather, a World War II vet, on his deathbed calling out for his men. He had been shot down in World War II. And on his deathbed, he was calling out for the people he hadn't seen since World War II, and he was 95 at the time of his passing. So that's something that carried a long time, right? He had a full life after the war. So I think the work of this organization is critical. I think having a place you can go and you can connect and you can find words to use it, and even if you don't know how to describe it, at least a connective experience where others are saying, I'm in that journey with you. It's a very impactful thing to not feel alone.
Well, so peer support, I don't know if I originally mentioned that, but,
Yeah.
I always say, I could sit down with a vet, but a vet's not going to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to talk about certain things with people who may not be familiar with what they went through, and certainly the peer support of these vets, they know what they each went through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I can tell you a quick story of one of the vets, if that's okay.
Sure.
So it's a non-denominational 501c3, and the reality is most of the vets are not Jewish, but one of the vets, and in Israel they do many things in all faiths, but one of the vets actually came out of Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum in Israel, and he hadn't really been communicative the whole journey, but he called everyone together and he talked of how he was on patrol in Iraq, and a father and a son approached them, and the father gave his son his gun and told him to kill the infidels. This guy had to kill the 10-year-old. This guy had a 10-year-old at home. How do you, how do you manage that? So Yad Vashem taught him, in the last exhibit there is a candle for every child killed by the Nazis, and he came to realize it was that he wasn't a sociopathic murderer, that he was a soldier doing his job. And that was, for him, that was a key piece to opening the pathway to healing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the different places that they travel in Israel, you don't know which one's going to have that key impact. But then at night they have intense sessions with their coaches, and it's just it's very, very impactful.
So can you tell us more about that, the actual 10-day team journeys?
Yeah.
Sure. So basically they land in Israel, and a lot of these guys, the only thing they know of Israel is that it's in the Middle East. The only thing they know about the Jewish religion is whatever they've been brought up to know about the Jewish religion. Um, but when they cut just to the end, when they come home, they're more in love with Israel than many Jews are. But so they land and they begin traveling immediately. They'll go to the Western Wall. They'll go to Stations of the Cross, Church of Sepulchre. They'll be baptized in the Jordan River. They go to the 9/11 Memorial. I mean, it's a nonstop 10-day spiritual journey. And again, each night they have these sessions, and the healing process definitely begins.
So with that, the journey, is that at the beginning? You mentioned it was a 1-year program.
Correct.
So is that the start or the end? What does the rest of that time look like for those in the program?
So it's basically the 10-day journey is in the middle.
Okay.
The rest of the 1-year program is comprised of goal setting, of working to navigate reintegration into community. Just to look at how they've been living their lives and trying to establish a new set of values that is more productive and more beneficial to them, more beneficial to their spouse, more beneficial to their kids. That's, well, as you guys know, the impact on family is just so intense, and so that's the process of how the program works.
What kind of results are you guys seeing with the program? So like, do you have people coming back to you? Are you getting feedback from people about how much it helped?
Absolutely. So, in fact, we had been the subject of a long-term study by Dr. Joseph Currier at the University of South Alabama, and he found the efficacy of our results to be outstanding. The vets, when they come home, they are in touch with each other constantly. They're in touch with the people in Israel who traveled with them. We have not had a suicide in our graduates, which I think is a phenomenal statistic, and hopefully it continues on. The October 7th put a little hiccup into things because we were on hiatus from Journeys for a few months, but then we had to start again. It was a decision. Do you go back now? But you do.
So how long was that hiatus, just out of curiosity? Because I know, things are
About
still
3 months.
kind
About
of
3 months.
okay.
I was gonna say I also love, you mentioned the IDF soldiers, and that part of that is that, it's creating that bond and that shared experience across nations, right? Like, so it's that piece of it too. I think is a very impactful component of having a program that is, again, kind of creating the bridges, expanding that shared experience. So that's very interesting.
If you think about it, like if you want a term or an example of what moral injury is, you look at the soldiers who had to rush into the October 7th massacre and see babies in ovens and see whatever else they saw. But how do you manage that? And it's the same situation for them as it is for soldiers all over the world.
Yep.
So how many people have gone through the program so far?
We've had about 450.
Okay.
And our goal, like every 501c3, our goals are X, and we have to raise the money in order to fulfill those goals.
So how does someone participate in the program? If I felt like I had this problem, this I was suffering from, this desire to do what have you, how do I get involved?
So you go to heroes2heroes.org, and that's TO, Heroes to Heroes, and veterans can put in, they can apply right online. There's a phone number there, and if they need to speak to someone immediately, actually Judy is always available, and yeah, it people get referred or people seek it out on their own, and
Yeah.
it's organizations like yours that really help to make that possible.
When you say referred, like
Yeah.
you have medical doctors referring people to.
Family members,
Okay.
mostly, family members who just through observation see that something's not right, and yeah, so it's most a lot of family members. Although we're becoming somewhat more well known, so you do get referrals from professionals.
Okay.
And I think you mentioned, I'm sorry, you said this program was free to those who attend, or is there a cost associated with?
No, the only cost, so the journey to Israel is free. Um, yeah, the only thing the vet needs to do is to make their way to New York, to the airport. But beyond that, everything it's free.
Wow.
Yeah, that's significant.
That is significant. That is a lot.
It is.
Um,
Our cost per veteran is probably about 10 grand.
Wow.
So, we have key fundraisers and we look for people to help.
and I think a lot what when I was doing my research on moral injury, there was obviously a heavy focus on, the combat veteran. Um, I think some people may say, well, if I didn't go to combat, am I qualified? Who can attend this? Because I'm sure some people will self-select out of, I don't rate this program, right?
Right. The what's that syndrome called? The imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, primarily it is for combat vets, but we have it's men and it's women, and a lot of the women have suffered from, and I'm forgetting the name, but basically being, I mean, it's a sexual attack, I
The
guess.
military sexual trauma.
Right, that's it. And yeah, so combat vets in particular, but anyone who's at risk,
Hmm.
really. So,
All right.
question.
Do you run just like one program a year, or are you running this starting all the time? How's that work?
We've been doing four a year.
Wow.
We would like to jump it to 8 per year, and again, that's a function of funding.
And now, is that a cohort model? So is it like a group of people?
Who run the organization?
No, who participates? So like you do four a year. Is it like a group of 10 service members or veterans?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a specific group who come in and become a team.
Okay.
Excellent.
That helps with the bonding piece and everything
Yeah.
else, Doctor. Here, they can talk about it and all work through it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very key.
It's again, I think when we look at where moral injury is and how to find that support, having that cohort model, having a program that's not just here's a week and have a good day, that longevity piece, because again, a lot of life happens in the course of a year.
Absolutely.
So that I think is a very impactful thing about the program is how long you're connecting these people to one another, to the resources, to the journey, to know that this is going to take time.
And they're connected for life.
Yeah, yeah.
So what Judy found was that a lot of times organizations send guys on a vacation. They'll go away for a week, and they'll it may be. I mean, it's great for the week, but then it's done. And so our program is alcohol free, drug free. It's pure focus on getting better.
That's fantastic. There's so many pieces that go into this and impact everything. It's just a fascinating program to me. And then throwing in that trip to Israel in the middle,
Hmm.
you know, not only are they meeting foreign soldiers, the IDF, and with most likely similar situations and problems themselves, being able to build that bond, but then they come back and they continue their journey. Do you have some sort of like alumni program where they continue to give back and share what they've learned?
We absolutely do. So there is an alumni program. There are also alumni are involved in alumni will become coaches who travel on the journeys. But there is all these guys are in constant contact through our alumni program, and there are periodic programs that are run for them. So yeah, no, it's a very strong, cohesive, solid group of people. No,
So outside the major program that we've talked about, are there other things that you guys as an organization are doing?
in terms of other outreach.
Outreach, like you just said, that there's some alumni things that come up, so are there any other things that you guys have going on that we haven't discussed so far?
You know what? Well, we do. I mean, of course, we have a fundraiser, but I don't know if that's something we want to discuss, although we could.
Yeah, we definitely can, because we'd love for people to support your organization. You're doing amazing work.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, for anyone who sees this who's in the New York area, on July 21st, we're going to be having our 15th annual Golf and Pickleball Classic at the Sea Wayne Club on the South Shore of Long Island. So it'll be a great, and actually more than players, anyone who would like to sponsor would be a great addition to the team.
So has it always been golf and pickleball, or is pickleball a recent addition?
Pickleball is a recent addition.
Okay.
Are you guys pickleballers?
I am not. I have not taken it up yet, but I didn't think it was overly popular 15 years ago, so I was just curious.
It wasn't. It wasn't. But when you get to my age, people start. So I used to play a lot of tennis, pickleball. Although pickleball, they say, is an orthopedic stream because you're playing on a hard court, short stops, quick starts, and a lot of injuries. But pickleball is new.
Something for everyone.
Good point. Yes.
I've met quite a few veterans that are getting into it, so there's something to be said for it.
Absolutely. You know what? It's a very low barrier to entry rehabilitation exercise. You know what? We all have to get out and move. So yeah, that'll be fun. This will be our first time.
That's awesome.
Doctor, here you're up there in Mass. You're not that far.
I'm not, and I frequent Long Island and whatnot. So yeah, I have a feeling I will find my way to connect in person at some point. And
Beautiful.
How is the best way to kind of think of touch points? And if people do want to reach out and either get more information or apply or however it is, what is the best way to connect with the organization?
Well, you can go to the website, heroes2heroes.org, or if somebody watching this would like more information, they can reach out to me. My phone number is 516-521-3499. My email address is a lot longer, but I can give that too. It's mhaltman at hallmarkabstractllc.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody.
Excellent. And I'm excited to see the evolution of this continuation of services. Again, I think moral injury is going to continue to evolve in the conversations, the research, the understanding of the experience. So, vital work.
I agree. I
being
mean,
done.
PTSD is a very broad term, and moral injury is somewhere in there, I think, but it is a very broad term. So to be more specific about what people are going through, I think, is important.
Exactly. And I think there are people who say, well, I don't think I have PTSD, but there's something. And what is that something? And I think many are starting to find that, again, that terminology. And again, moral injury is broad. Everyone's experience is very, So it's wonderful. Again, I think the tribe mentality, the cohort, providing that connectiveness. So thank you so much. As we wrap up, is there any one last word or final thing you'd like to share about the organization?
You know what? Just that it's, the founder, Judy, could not be more focused, driven, and Heroes to Heroes is her life. And, when you find somebody who's like that, you need to stay with that and participate with it. So, and just the last thing, our tagline is bringing our American heroes from suicidal ideation to community reintegration.
Mm.
Like that.
And, yeah, but again, I very much appreciate you guys having me on. I think what you do is critical. You know, it's people need to know what it is they can do to find help, and it's not always that easy.
Nope, it is not, and that is why we're here. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of the VET S.O.S family, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. VET S.O.S is growing and spreading its wings. You can follow us on all social media platforms. Make sure to check out all 3 of the shows. Follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. We are on YouTube, Reach Across America Radio, and the Parade Deck. And again, your favorite podcast platform. And remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.